Elias Ward had repaired many strange machines in his life, but nothing compared to the silent ark drifting above the barren moon. The ship looked like a wounded creature made of silver bone and soft light. Its hull cracked open like something had clawed through it from the inside. When the rescue team finally cut their way into the broken chamber, the only sign of life they found was a faint pulse coming from a sealed pod. Elias was the only engineer brave enough to open it, and when he did, his breath caught in his chest. Inside, curled like a sleeping star, lay Aurelia. He had never seen a being like her. Her skin shimmered faintly, as if reflecting colors that didn't exist. Her features looked sculpted with impossible care. She didn't look engineered. She looked intentional, as if every part of her had been shaped with a purpose. But she was unconscious and weak, her breathing shallow, and Elias felt nothing except concern as he lifted her out of the pod. She weighed less than he expected, and her fingers twitched as if reaching for something she couldn't grasp. They rushed her to the research station using a small shuttle. Elias stayed by her side the whole time, checking her vitals even though he barely understood her biology. She woke only for a moment during the flight, her eyes glowing softly like molten gold. She looked at Elias as if she had been waiting for him, whispering something in a voice too fragile to understand. Then she fell asleep again. When the shuttle landed, Elias carried her to the medbay himself. Other scientists approached, but she clung to Elias's uniform unconsciously, her hand refusing to let go even while she slept. He gently unwrapped her fingers and placed them beside her before stepping away. The med team scanned her, took notes, whispered theories, but Elias only saw someone lost and terrified. Hours passed before she woke fully. Elias had been sitting quietly in the corner of the room, repairing a tablet to keep his hands occupied. When she finally opened her eyes, she sat up slowly, blinking at the strange room and the strange people around her. But her gaze locked onto Elias immediately, like she recognized only him. Her first words were soft, trembling, and carried strange musical tones. "You came for me. Came for me. Came for me." Elias stood and gave her a reassuring smile. "We found your ship drifting. You were the only survivor. Are you in pain?" She shook her head, though she looked frightened by everything she saw. Her eyes traveled across the medbay, confused and overwhelmed. But when they returned to Elias, her breathing calmed a little. Something inside her seemed to settle just by looking at him. He approached slowly, careful not to overwhelm her. "My name is Elias. You're safe here. No one will hurt you." Aurelia studied him with a strange intensity, as if memorizing every detail of his face. Then she said something he didn't expect. "You speak gently. That is unusual for a human." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Unusual?" She nodded again, her voice shaking slightly. "My body was shaped to awaken passion in those who meet me. Humans especially. That is my design, my purpose." She looked down at her own hands as if they didn't belong to her. "But I do not want that. I only crave something else. Something simple." She hesitated, almost afraid to say the next words. "Your first touch." Elias felt his heart twist, not with desire but with sadness. She spoke like someone who had been taught only what she was made for, not what she could choose. He kept a respectful distance and shook his head gently. "You're not an object," he said. "I won't treat you like one. You don't owe anyone anything. Not me. Not humans. Not whoever created you." She looked confused, almost hurt by his refusal, but not in a selfish way. More like she didn't understand why he wasn't reacting the way she expected. "My creators told me humans crave ownership. They said my shape would please you. But you stepped away." "I stepped away," he said softly, "because you're scared and alone. You need comfort, not expectation. If I touch you, it should be because you want it freely, not because someone made you think you must give it." Aurelia stared at him, her expression shifting between shock and something like hope. No one had spoken to her like this before. No one had offered her a choice, As the med team finished their evaluations, Aurelia tried to stand, but her legs trembled, and she nearly fell. Elias instinctively moved to help her, but he stopped himself an inch before touching her arm. She noticed the hesitation and looked up at him. "You stopped again," she whispered. "Because I want you to choose," he said simply. "Do you want help?" Her eyes softened. "Yes." Only then did he place his hand on her arm, gently supporting her. It was the first real contact between them. She gasped not because of passion, but because it was the first time someone had touched her with respect. Her body wasn't reacting out of programming. Her mind was reacting out of relief. They walked slowly to the observation room where she could see the moon outside through a large window. Aurelia stood quietly, watching the barren landscape. She hugged her arms as if cold. Elias noticed and offered her a warm blanket. She took it carefully, staring at it like she didn't know the meaning of kindness. "Why do you help me?" she finally asked. "Because you're alive," Elias replied. "And you deserve to be treated like any person." Her voice trembled. "But I was never considered a person. Only a creation." She touched her chest lightly. "I am a shaped being, not a born one. That doesn't change your worth," he said. She blinked slowly, absorbing his words with difficulty. "You say things that are forbidden in my world." "Maybe your world was wrong." Aurelia lowered her gaze, overwhelmed by emotions she didn't understand. She had been programmed to crave connection and designed to inspire desire. Yet in this moment she felt something else. Something she had never felt before: safety. And that feeling came from Elias's refusal to treat her the way she was told humans would. He left her to rest, giving her space, but she followed him out of the room, walking slowly. "Elias," she called softly. He turned. "Yes?" "I feel different near you." Her hand hovered uncertainly near her chest. Not the programmed pull. Something new. Elias could see sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't playing a role. She was discovering herself for the first time. But he didn't want to mislead her, or push her into anything. "You're recovering," he said gently. "Everything is confusing right now. We can take things slow." She nodded, appreciating his calm tone, though she still looked troubled. "What if my feelings are not mine?" she asked quietly. "What if everything I feel is something my creators forced into me?" He stepped closer slowly, so she wouldn't flinch. "Then we'll figure it out together. I'm an engineer. I fix things. Maybe I can help you understand yourself." Something eased in her shoulders. She wasn't alone anymore. For someone created to be claimed, this was the first offer of a partnership, not ownership. As the evening cycle dimmed the station lights, Aurelia met other crew members, but she stayed close to Elias. She observed how humans laughed, how they spoke, how they moved without fear of disapproval. Every little action fascinated her, not because she was programmed to analyze them, but because she wanted to understand what freedom looked like. Later, she sat beside Elias in the workshop where he repaired one of the scanners. She watched quietly, her golden eyes following each movement of his hands. "You enjoy building things," she said softly. "I enjoy fixing what's broken," he corrected with a light smile. She looked down at her hands, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think I am broken?" No, he said without hesitation. "But I think you were never given the chance to choose who you want to be." She inhaled slowly, her expression shifting with his words. These were simple ideas to him, but unimaginable to her. Yet every time he spoke, she felt something warm grow inside her. Something she couldn't name. A pause filled the room before she spoke again. "Elias, earlier, when I said I wanted your first touch, I did not mean ownership. I meant something gentle, something real. Even if it is small." He set his tools down, meeting her eyes carefully. "And you'll have that, but only when you're ready." She smiled faintly, her first true smile since waking. A vibration suddenly shook the station as a system alarm went off somewhere in the distance. Elias stood, checking the monitors. Aurelia tensed, her instincts warning her of something she didn't understand. "What is happening?" she asked. "Probably just a relay malfunction," Elias said, though he didn't look convinced. "I'll check it in the morning. For now, you should rest." Aurelia hesitated before speaking. "Will you leave?" "I'll be nearby," he assured her. "You're safe." As she walked to her assigned room, Aurelia kept glancing back at him. She wasn't afraid of the dark or the silence. She was afraid of losing the one person who didn't see her as a created shape. When she finally lay down, she curled into the blanket he had given her. For the first time in her existence, she felt hope fragile, bright, and completely her own. And outside the station, hidden in the shadows of the moon, something watched the research outpost silently, tracking the signal of the Ark. Aurelia was not as alone as they believed. Aurelia woke early, long before the research station lights shifted into their morning cycle. She sat quietly on her bed, knees pulled close, the blanket Elias had given her wrapped around her shoulders. She didn't understand why she felt restless. Her creators had designed her emotions to follow simple patterns: desire, attachment, obedience. But what she felt now was nothing like any of those. It was something deeper, gentler, and harder to control. It felt like her chest warmed whenever she thought of Elias. She stood and walked toward the window, where she could see the dark surface of the moon. The stars reflected in her golden eyes like tiny lanterns. She lifted her hand and pressed her fingers to the glass, wondering how a world so empty could feel more welcoming than the place she came from. Maybe it wasn't the world. Maybe it was the people here. Or maybe it was just him. Her thoughts were interrupted when the door opened with a soft hiss. She turned, startled, but relaxed when she saw Elias stepping in with a simple meal tray. "You were awake?" he asked gently. "Yes," she replied. "I could not sleep." He noticed the worry in her voice. "Nightmares?" She shook her head slowly. "No. Thoughts. Anything you want to talk about?" Aurelia hesitated, unsure how to put her feelings into words. She had never been taught how to describe emotions that were not programmed. "I do not know what is happening inside me," she admitted, "but when you are near, it feels easier to breathe." Elias didn't step closer, though he clearly wanted to comfort her. He placed the tray on the table and sat down on the chair beside it. "Come eat," he said softly. "You need your strength." She walked toward him, moving slowly, almost shyly. It was strange she had been shaped to attract attention, to pull eyes toward her, to make others want to touch her. Yet with Elias, she felt no need to perform anything. She felt safe being quiet, unsure, or even clumsy. She sat across from him and looked at the food with curiosity. "It smells strange," she murmured. "That's a good sign," he said. "It means the nutrients are real." She smiled faintly and began to eat, slowly but steadily. Elias watched her posture relax as she tasted each bite with thoughtful attention. She ate like someone experiencing food for the first time, savoring every texture. When she finished, she sat back with a small sigh of contentment. "Do humans always begin the day like this?" she asked. "If we're lucky," he replied. "Most days are busier." Aurelia tilted her head. "Busy with what?" "Repairs, research, messages from command," he said. "And today, we're going to check the Ark you came in on. There's something strange happening with its systems. I think it's waking up." Her eyes widened with alarm. "Waking up?" He nodded. "It sent out a weak pulse yesterday. That's why the alarms went off." Aurelia placed her hands on the table slowly, gripping the edge for stability. She knew exactly what that pulse meant. Her creators, the architects, would have sensed it. They would come for her. She was valuable to them. Not because of her existence, but because of what she carried. A genetic matrix that could stabilize thousands of engineered companions like her. Without her, their future would be unstable. They would not let her go. Elias saw her growing fear and spoke carefully. "Aurelia, do you know what that signal was?" She lowered her head, ashamed. "Yes, it was a call. My creators must have triggered it in case the Ark was damaged. They will follow the signal." He leaned forward, voice calm and steady. Are they dangerous? She hesitated, then nodded. To anyone who stands between them and me. Yes. She swallowed hard. They do not harm their creations, but they view all others as obstacles. Elias's jaw tightened slightly. So they might come here, she whispered. I am afraid they already have. The words lingered in the air like a shadow. Elias didn't panic. He breathed in slowly, thinking. Then we prepare, and we don't let them take you. Aurelia stared at him, confused. Why? If I am the danger, if my presence brings harm, then you should give me back to them. Absolutely not, he said firmly. You're not a threat. They are. But I was made by them, she insisted. They shaped me to serve them. They own me. You don't belong to anyone, he said softly but strongly. Not anymore. His words hit her harder than he knew. She had never heard anyone speak about her like that. Freedom wasn't a concept she'd been allowed to think about. But when Elias said it didn't feel like a fantasy. It felt possible. Before she could respond, the station's speakers crackled with static. A voice from the control deck called out urgently, Elias, you need to come see this. Now. Elias stood quickly. Aurelia followed, her steps light but tense. They walked fast through the bright corridor until they reached the main deck. A group of officers stood around the central screen, faces pale. On the display hovered a massive ship, dark and cold, shaped like a great mechanical spine. Its presence made everyone in the room go silent. They arrived fast, one of the officers whispered. Aurelia trembled. That is an architect cruiser. The screen flickered, and a message played. A voice unlike any human sound filled the room smooth, layered, and cold. We have come for prototype Aurelia 47. Return her to us immediately. She is essential property of the Architect Dominion. Failure to comply will result in removal by force. Elias stepped forward. Can they hear us? Yes, the officer replied nervously. Audio link is open. Elias spoke clearly. This is a human research station. Aurelia is not your property. She is a person. We will not surrender her. Aurelia froze, shocked. The crew gasped softly. It was the first time anyone had openly defended her existence. The alien voice returned with icy precision. Your denial is noted. Prepare for retrieval. The transmission ended abruptly. Aurelia stepped back, her legs shaking. She whispered, You should not have done that. Elias turned to her calmly. I'm not letting them take you. You do not understand, she said, voice breaking. They will tear this station apart. They will kill to get to me. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder gently, only after she looked at him and gave a small nod. Then we defend ourselves. And we protect you. Her eyes filled with something she couldn't explain. Not programming. Not instinct. Something real. Something warm. The station quickly shifted into emergency mode. Shields powered up, defenses activated, and crew members hurried to their stations. Aurelia stood beside Elias in the command center, staring at the view of the approaching cruiser. What do they want from you exactly? Elias asked. My genetic core, she whispered. Without it, their entire project collapses. They will not allow me to choose anything of my own. She looked at him with sudden desperation. Elias, what if my feelings are not real? What if they were put into me to make me loyal? What if I am only reacting because I was shaped to? He stepped closer. Aurelia, your creators may have written part of you, but not all of you. How do you know? Because programming can't create this much fear, or confusion, or hope. Those are choices you make, even without realizing. She held her breath, trying to steady herself. He was right. None of the emotions she felt now existed before she met him. She had never been afraid for herself. She had never hoped for anything more. Her creators gave her a purpose, but not a heart. That part she discovered on her own. The entire station shook as the architect ship fired a warning blast across their shields. Aurelia gasped and grabbed Elias's arm. He held her steady. "You're safe," he said. "I'm here." Aurelia's voice wavered. "Why do you care so much for me when you barely know me?" "Because caring doesn't need a reason," he said simply. "You're alive. You're scared. And you deserve the right to choose your own life." No one had ever said such things to her. Her creators told her she was shaped to be wanted. Elias told her she was born to be free. Another shake rattled the station. Officers shouted commands. Aurelia looked out the window again, her heart pounding. "They won't stop," she whispered. "No," Elias said, "but neither will we." She looked up at him again, and in that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. If she survived this, she would discover who she truly was, not as a creation, not as a tool, but as someone who could stand beside him on her own terms. Outside, the Architect cruiser began deploying boarding ships. Inside, humans prepared to defend their station with everything they had. Aurelia stood between two worlds, one that made her, and one that gave her hope. And soon, she would have to choose which one to fight for. The research station shook again, harder than before, as the Architect boarding ships latched onto its hull with long metallic claws. The sound echoed through every corridor, an ugly reminder that Aurelia's past had finally reached her. She stood beside Elias in the command center, her hands trembling, her eyes locked on the screens showing enemy forces crawling across the station's outer shell like metal insects. "They're breaching the lower decks," one officer yelled. Elias turned to Aurelia immediately. "We need to get you somewhere safe." "No," she whispered. "Running will not stop them. They will find me. They always do." "But we can't let you be taken," Elias insisted. Her golden eyes lifted toward his, full of fear and something far more complicated. "I do not want to go with them. Not anymore. Not after everything I've learned here. Not after meeting you." Elias softened just slightly, but his expression stayed firm. "Then, let's get you to the Ark. If the Ark still recognizes you, maybe we can use its systems to shut them out." Aurelia nodded slowly. She didn't know if she was strong enough, but she knew she could try. Elias took her hand, not tightly, not possessively, but gently, ensuring she felt steady. That touch alone gave her courage she had never felt before. They ran through the corridors as emergency lights flashed red. Station crew shouted orders, secured doors, and prepared for combat. Aurelia saw fear on their faces. Yet they all fought for a world she had only known a short time. She wondered if she deserved such protection. She wondered if they would still fight this hard if they knew she was designed, not born. As they reached the main airlock to the hangar, the doors shuddered violently. Engineers were frantically locking down the bay, sparks raining from overloaded circuits. "You two!" one shouted. "Get to Shuttle Bay 3, it's the only access left to the Ark." Elias nodded, pulling Aurelia with him. She followed close, her breathing sharp. Her body wasn't programmed for combat or crisis. Yet she moved, like someone determined to survive. They burst into the hangar, and Aurelia froze. Through the massive window, she saw the Ark floating silently in the darkness, still cracked and wounded from its crash. It looked dead and alive at the same time, like a sleeping beast waiting for a reason to breathe again. "How do we reach it?" she asked. "The shuttle's prepped," Elias said. "We'll dock directly." They sprinted across the hangar floor. But before they reached the shuttle, a thunderous crash shook the metal beneath their feet. A section of the hangar wall exploded inward, sending debris flying as a group of Architect soldiers forced their way in. They were tall, armored, and moved with cold precision. Their glowing visors scanned the room immediately. Aurelia froze. Elias pulled her behind a stack of crates. "They found us quickly," he muttered. She felt guilt crush her chest. "They will kill everyone, just to reach me." "No," Elias said firmly. "We won't let that happen." He checked the path to the shuttle. It was directly in the soldiers' view. They couldn't run for it without being seen. Aurelia touched Elias's arm. "Let me go to them. If they stop attacking." "No." Elias whispered sharply. "Aurelia, listen to me. You're not surrendering. Not now. Not ever. She looked at him, breath shaking. You speak as if I am strong. But I am not. You are, he said. Stronger than you know. His voice steadied her. Slowly, she looked at the ark outside. Its lights faint and fading. She realized something important. The ark wasn't just a ship. It was the one place the architects expected obedience. But if she could reach it and override her genetic bindings, she could break their control completely. Elias, she said softly. I have an idea. But it is dangerous. So, is everything right now? He said. Tell me. If I connect with the ark directly, I might override the signal they use to track me. I might even shut down the codes that make me obey them. Will it hurt you? He asked quickly. I don't know, she answered honestly. But if I do nothing, they will take me and kill everyone here. Elias didn't hesitate. Then we do it. Together. Before they could move, the architect soldiers began advancing. They scanned each section of the hangar slowly, systematically. Aurelia swallowed hard. They will find us in seconds. Elias grabbed a small pulse device from a nearby toolbox. Not if we distract them. She stared at him in alarm. Elias, you cannot fight them alone. I'm not fighting, he said calmly. I'm buying you time. No, she said, gripping his wrist. I cannot lose you. He looked at her, his voice gentle despite the danger surrounding them. You won't. I promise. Now go. I'll follow you the moment the path is clear. She shook her head, tears forming. I was shaped to be wanted. I was made to inspire passion. But no one told me how to survive losing someone who treated me like a person. You're not losing me, Elias said. Trust me. Before she could answer, the soldiers turned, scanning directly toward their hiding place. Elias activated the pulse device and threw it across the hangar. It exploded in a burst of white light and loud static, scrambling the soldiers' sensors. They staggered, momentarily blinded. Go! Elias shouted. Aurelia ran toward the shuttle, her heart pounding, her steps fast and light. She boarded just as Elias sprinted after her. The shuttle doors closed, and he jumped into the pilot chair, launching them toward the ark with a burst of thrust. The dark alien ship grew larger in the window. Its broken hull pieces drifted slowly around it like floating leaves. As they docked against the main airlock, Aurelia felt something deep inside her stir, something old, something tied to her creation. This ship knows me, she whispered. I hope that's a good thing, Elias replied. When the airlock opened, cold air washed over them. The interior glowed faintly, as if sensing Aurelia's presence. She stepped inside cautiously. The walls pulsed with soft light, guiding her through the corridors. Elias followed close behind. Where are we going? To the core, she said. Where they wrote my purpose. They reached the central chamber. It was filled with strands of light, floating data shaping itself like living threads. Aurelia stepped toward the main interface, a crystalline panel resembling a heart suspended in the air. She placed her hand on it. A sudden rush of energy rippled through the room. Elias flinched at the brightness. But Aurelia kept her hand pressed firmly, breathing through the pain building behind her ribs. What's happening? Elias asked. I am rewriting myself, she whispered. Breaking the bindings, severing their control. Her voice shook, and her legs wobbled. Elias rushed forward but stopped the moment she lifted her other hand. Do not touch me, she warned gently. This process is delicate. If you interrupt, everything may collapse. He clenched his jaw. I'm not leaving. You hear me? I'm right here. She nodded faintly, tears sliding down her cheeks not from sadness, but from the overwhelming pain of rewriting her own existence. Her creators had never intended for her to change. Her programming resisted every adjustment. But she pushed harder. I choose, she whispered to the core, to be free. The ark's lights brightened violently. Outside, the architect soldiers inside the station suddenly stopped moving. Their armor flickered. Their commands scrambled. Then, the cruiser above the moon shuddered as its main systems faltered. Elias watched in shock. "You're shutting them down," Aurelia gasped, her voice trembling. "I am shutting down their claim on me, and the tracking code they used. They can no longer command me." Her legs gave out. Elias rushed forward this time and caught her before she hit the floor. She collapsed against him, breathing hard, her body shaking violently. "It's over," he whispered, holding her gently. "You did it." She looked up at him with weak, teary eyes. "Elias, did I become someone real?" He touched her cheek carefully, brushing away a tear. "You didn't become real, you always were." Her breath hitched, and she leaned closer, not out of design or programming, but out of relief, out of choice. Her hand rested lightly against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. "I was shaped to awaken passion," she whispered, her voice soft and trembling. "But what I truly craved, what I was terrified to want, was this. Your first touch. Given freely." Elias smiled gently. "Then it's yours." He held her close as the arc lights dimmed, its systems stabilizing. The Architect cruiser retreated. Their control lost. Their mission failed. The station below slowly regained order. Humanity had survived another threat, and Aurelia, for the first time in her existence, felt something her creators never wrote into her code: freedom. A quiet future awaited her, one she could shape herself, and she wanted to shape it beside the human who had shown her that even a designed heart could learn how to choose.